ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم اسلمنا من الشيطان الرجيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صلى الله تعالى على خلقه محمد وآله وسلم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We will continue inshallah with simple lessons from Quran and Hadith. Today's topic is extremely important given the circumstances that we live these days, which is the respect of parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reminded us in many places in the Holy Quran about the rights of the parents. The importance of their rights become apparent from the verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded kindness to the parents right after the command of worshipping Him and not associating partners with Him. For example, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا صدق الله العظيم. Worship Allah and associate nothing with Him and be kind to the parents. Subhanallah, the rights of the parents, the respect and rights and the obedience of the parents is such an important thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just only the Quran and for the Muslims that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of the rights of the parents and respecting them and obeying them, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the same commandment to Jews and Christians as well, which you might not have known. We find in the 6th book of Ephesians in Bible, and this is a quote from there. Children, obey your parents, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with the promise that may go well with you and that you may live long in the land, if you obey your father and mother. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Subhanallah. You can see this is nothing new for Muslims Islam. It has been there before in the books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm sure besides the books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in every other religion, something must have been there about respecting the parents. I'm sure of it, because we find it in all cultures. Nowadays, unfortunately, most of our children show no respect or kindness to their parents. And worse than that is the sad reality that most parents ignore the lack of respect and disobedience from their saying, oh, they're just children. Oh, it's just a kid. And thus we encourage them to continue to be disrespectful to their parents as well as their elders. Now remember, if a child will not be respectful to his parents, he will not be respectable to any other elders. This comes first. The problem is that few parents truly practice what they preach. All too often they have a do as I say, not as I do attitude. The commandments about the right of the parents are much more in detail in the previous books. The commandments about the right of the parents are in much more details than in Quran than in the previous books. Let us look at some of these verses from the Quran and then we'll turn into the Hadith. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إليه المصير وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وما صاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا واتبع سبيل من أناب إلي ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون صدق الله العظيم. We have entrusted the human beings with the care of his parents. His mother carried him through hardship upon hardship, weaning him in 2 years. So give thanks to me and to your parents. To me is the return. But if they strive to have you associate with me something of which you have no knowledge, do not obey them. But keep them company in this life in kindness, and follow the path of him who turns to me. Then to me is your return, and I will inform you of what you used to do. This verse of Quran is very important from the perspective that it gives you the reason why Allah expects you to obey and respect the parents. Like you heard, Allah said, his mother carried him in through hardship upon hardship and weaning him in 2 years. The respect of the mother, the kindness to the mother, is 3 times more important than the father. The respect to your mother is 3 times more important than your father. And there's a hadith about it. We'll go to it inshallah. And the reason for that is very simple. A mother goes through, as you heard in the words, hardship after hardship after hardship. Those of the sisters who may be listening would know, you and I cannot appreciate it. How difficult it is for a woman to go through the pregnancy. 9 months of going through very difficult time, not being able to sleep, throwing up, being uncomfortable, etc., etc., etc. That's number one hardship. Number two, giving birth to the child. You and I have never had and will never have this experience of how painful it is for the woman to go through the childbirth. A father does not go through this process. Number three, when the child is born, the primary responsibility for the child's sustenance is the mother. The mother has to stay up nights, make sure that the child is fed, make sure that the child is not going hungry, make sure that the child is not wet. She loses her sleep, she loses her comfort, she's tired all day long and all night long. And 2 years it takes maximum for the child to wean out of the breast milk from the mother and start to eat. Then, even the two parents may be there, but who takes the responsibility of raising the child? Day and night, 24/7. Who is looking after the children? It is the mother. Therefore, the mother deserves kindness 3 times more than the father. The father deserves something else. I'm going to come to you in a minute. There's a hadith about this in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some person asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Who has more rights over me? She said, your mother. He asked again, and then after? He said, your mother. And he said, but then after? He said, your mother. They said, but then after? He said, then your father. It also, this verse of Quran is so important. It also sets limits. It sets limits in the sense that it says, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. If they ask you to associate others with me, or they ask you to do something wrongful, they ask you to do something sinful, do not obey them. However, if you will not obey them in that, but you will still not disrespect them. SubhanAllah, this is the beauty. You will not obey him and them, but you will still not disrespect them. وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. But keep them company in this life in kindness. This is the balance of this religion. It doesn't go this way to the end or extreme. It doesn't go that way to the extreme. It keeps everything balanced and perspective and something that makes sense. Let's look at the next verse, which is something that I just spoke about, but let me just quickly read it. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. We have enjoined mankind to his parents. We have enjoined upon mankind his parents. His mother carried him with difficulty and delivered him with difficulty. His bearing and weaning takes 30 months until when he has attained his maturity and he has reached 40 years. The child says, Lord, enable me to appreciate the blessings you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and to act with righteousness, pleasing you, and improve my children for me. I have sincerely repented to you, and I am of those who have surrendered. A pious child, a child who sincerely appreciates what his parents have done for them, cannot but make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them and to bless them for all the goods they have done to him. Astaghfirullah. You know these days what's happening? I was seeing a family some times ago, and the parents brought their son, and they were having a very hard time with them. The son was about 15, I suppose, around that age, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. And they were saying that we have done so much for him. We have provided him good education. We have set a good example for him. The father said, I worked so many hours to provide the best of the life for my children. And now he's 16, 17, and he has no respect for me. He has no respect for his parents. When we point these things out to him, he just doesn't care. Anyways, they went on and on and on. And then I looked at this young man and I said, son, is that right what they're saying about you? He said, yeah. I said, Do you not realize all they've done for you? Now you're 16 years of age, and all that they have done for you, all the hardships that your mom and your dad has gone through to raise you to this point, doesn't that count for anything? Guess what his answer was? That's their job. That is their job. I said, how much did you pay for them for this job? Have you been paying them for this job? Because nobody does a job for free. But this mentality is so present in our young kids. They look at all the parents that they are doing all these things for them and they think it's their job. It is the parents' job. Nobody asks them, and what is your job? All these things that your parents did for you was their job. What is your job towards them? Nobody, even the parents, ask them this question. And therefore, this goes on and on and on. May Allah forgive us. Let me read the next verse. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبْرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُل لَّهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا واخفض لهما جناح الذل من رحمته وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. Your Lord has commanded that you worship none but Him, and you be good to your parents. If either of them or both of them reach old age with you, do not say them a word of disrespect, nor scold them, but say to them kind words, and lower to them the wing of humility out of mercy, and say, my Lord, have mercy on them, as they raised me when I was a child. SubhanAllah. It is so sad that in this culture, if you look at the larger culture, it is not uncommon that you find children using the F words to their parents. How often? And not, when our kids are part of this culture and they associate with these kids, and if they're having the issues with their parents and they talk to their friends about it, and their friends tell them, oh, F your parents. Just call Social Security, call the Child Welfare Department, they'll take care of them. Not uncommon. I can cite you many cases where kids have called police upon their parents, and kids have called social services to make false complaints about how they're being abused by the parents. There's a hadith, and we're going to come to the hadith also, but just reminds me of it. The meaning of which is, disrespecting, disobeying, and hurting the parents is a major sin. Disobeying, disrespecting, cursing your parents is a major sin. And the consequence of this sin, the payment of this sin, the person would suffer in this life and the life hereafter. Wallahi Nazim, please remember, there's something else I want to remember. If you disrespected your parents, if you disobeyed your parents, count on it, your children will do the same thing to you. Count on it. Kids, would you please quiet down? Upstairs and downstairs, please be quiet. So, the consequences, the punishment of disrespecting and disobeying the parents, a person will suffer in this life as well until the day he dies and will not die in peace. I'm going to cite you a hadith, the meaning of a hadith. A man was dying. He was not an old man, he was a young man. He was on his deathbed. And the state of sakarat was very hard on him. He was in a state of sakarat. You know, when a person is dying and about to die, and the mental state that they are in, and the soul will not leave him. And companions pitied him and felt sorry for him. And they called for the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, asked Rasulullah to come. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, came and he looked at the boy and he said, is his mother alive? They said, yes, but she doesn't talk to him because she's not happy with him. She won't even come. He said, bring her. Ask her that I'm calling her. So he sent out to a companion to ask his mother to come. The mother came and the Prophet asked him, is this your son? She said, yeah. He says, he's finding his death difficult. Would you please forgive him? She said, I can't. The trouble this guy has given me all my life, I will never forgive him. Before I go to that last part of the hadith, let me just explain something. As kind as the mothers are, as difficult it is for them to forgive you. When a woman is hurt, not easy for her to let it go. When a wife is hurt at the hands of her husband, not easy for her to let it go. When a mother is hurt at the hands of her children, not easy for her to forget it. Please remember that. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you so that to impress upon you to please watch yourself how you talk to your mother, how you deal with your mother. Please watch it. Khair. He said, I know that you're upset at him. I know that you're angry at him. If you like, I can ask a fire to be built and throw your son into the fire. She said, no. My son, after all. He said, if you are afraid of me putting him in a fire now here in the world, by not forgiving him if he dies, you are actually damning him to the hellfire. That's how important this is. May Allah forgive us. Don't speak in a harsh tone to the parents. And now I'm going to turn to adults that are sitting here, brothers and sisters. In many, many situations, in many cases, when you have elderly parents are not easy to deal with. Because like Allah said in the Quran, that at the old age, Allah returns them to being like a kid. And as kids are difficult to handle, elderly people are not easy. They're difficult to handle. They're difficult to put up with. But these days we find such disrespect for these parents. The adult children are married, they're living with their wives and husbands and children. And they don't have time for the elderly parents. The wife does not want the elderly father-in-law or mother-in-law to be living with them because he or she will be a burden, would cause her more problems. She causes then more problems to the husband. And many times these poor elderly people are put in shelters, old people's homes. It's a shame, actually, that in Muslim communities around North America now, Muslim organizations are looking to build senior citizen homes. Astaghfirullah. Why? Reminds me of a story that I read somewhere. A very elderly father lived with his adult son. And they were sitting in their lawn, and the crow was flying, a bird flew over. And the father asked the son, "What is that?" The father said, "That is a crow." "What is that?" The son says, "That is a crow." "What is that?" "Dad, I told you it's a crow." He said, "When you were young, we were sitting like this one day, and you kept asking me, what is that bird? And I very patiently kept telling you, it's a crow, and never yelled at you." We forget those days. There's a hadith, the meaning of which is, if a person finds his two parents in old age, or one parent in her old or his old age, and does not earn his paradise by serving him, there's no bigger loser than him. The worst of the losers. You know, they say also, the paradise is in the feet of the mother. Paradise is in the feet of the mothers. Meaning what? Serving the mother will earn you paradise. You may keep asking for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your sins, for your wrongdoings, for as long as you want. But if you keep your parents unhappy and they're not happy with you, none of your du'as are accepted. Let's look at some of the ahadiths about this now. I'm going to skip the Arabic part, just the English translation. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu has said, Allah's pleasure lies in the pleasure of the father, and Allah's displeasure lies in the displeasure of the father. It's a very important hadith. I'm just going to explain exactly what is it saying, what is it teaching us. Let me read again. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu narrated, the Prophet said, Allah's pleasure lies in the pleasure of the father, and Allah's pleasure lies in the displeasure of the father. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Anybody? What pleases Allah and what displeases Allah? Speak aloud. What pleases him is what displeases him. Okay, very good. Somebody else? Oh, yeah, come on here, come on here. But you have to speak aloud, okay? बच्चे खुश होते हैं. What pleases Allah? Aloud. What makes Allah happy? What Allah makes him happy is respecting him, worship him, and very good. That's very good. Very good. Yes, you too. That's true. What pleases Allah is when we obey Him. Correct? What displeases Allah is when we disobey Him. Correct? Simply said. Now Allah said, if you please your father, Allah will be pleased with you. If you obey your father like you obey me, Allah will be pleased with you. If you disobey the father like you disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will be displeased with you. Just think of the importance of this. The father's role in the family is very different than the mother's role. Mother's role is in the home, raising the children as best as she can. The father's role is to be out there, work as hard as he can, to provide for the mother and the children, to give them a comfortable life. He's out there working all the time very hard. What for? He's not going to take all of this money to his grave. He's doing it for his family. The mother will not be able to do her job properly if the father was not there to provide for them. The mother's job, for her to fulfill her responsibilities at home, requires the father to provide for them. And he's out there all the time. He deserves respect. You do not use your parents, your father, as an ATM machine. Take the money out whenever you need. And lots of children are abusing, and families are abusing the fathers as an ATM machine and shown us no respect for them. The father deserves respect and obeying. The mother deserves kindness. The father does not require your kindness as much as your respect and your obedience. Let's look at the next hadith. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu has stated, if both the parents of a Muslim are alive and he begins the morning treating both of them kindly, then Allah opens for him two doors of paradise. Yani, while we're still alive, you're not dead yet. But if you are treating your parents well, if both of them are alive, and you treat them kindly, Allah reserves two doors open for you in paradise. Allahu Akbar Kabir. If one of them is alive and the child behaves kindly with the surviving parent, then Allah opens for him one door of paradise. And if he displeases them, then Allah will not be pleased with him until he makes them happy. Someone asked, O Prophet of Allah, even if they are wrong and oppressive? Ibn Abbas said, even if they are oppressive. Now this doesn't sit right with kids. So I need to explain this. Obviously, Allah has promised, if you deal with kindness, the two parents, the two doors of heaven will be open for you. If you displease them, the hell. And what if they're not fair with you? What if they're oppressive? What if they're not kind to you? He said, even then, there's a great lesson in this. A father being harsh with a child or even unfair with the child does not give the child permission then to be oppressive to the father or to the parents. It does not give the child the permission. But at the same time, hadith does not mean that the parents are free to treat the kids as bad as they can. No. What this is teaching us is that we all should remember that we all have our obligations and responsibilities. And we will be held accountable for our deeds. If my father does not treat me well, if my father is unfair to me, he will have to pay consequences for it. There's no way out of it. But that does not give me the right to be disrespectful to him. Because why? Because I have to be accountable for my deeds. Which is why when people ask me the mutual rights of husbands and wives, and when I deal with those cases, often the argument is, well, I'm not getting my rights, why should I give her her rights? Or vice versa. Those rights that Allah has placed upon us of each other are not conditional. The woman's rights over the husband has to fulfill, regardless of whether her rights are being fulfilled or not. They are mutually exclusive. Because each one would be asked for whether they fulfill their obligations or not, and rewarded or punished accordingly. Wallahi Azim, if we just keep that in mind in family living, life will be so much easier to live. Remember, living in a family when there are parents, there are children, there may be uncles and aunts, there may be grandparents. It's not always easy to be fair with everyone. It's not always easy not to get hurt about something. It is not always easy to always treat everybody kind. It's not easy. It takes a lot of patience. But if each one of us in the family or extended family chooses to stay focused on fulfilling his or her responsibilities, then knowing that I fulfill my responsibilities to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah be pleased with me. Whether he or she or whoever did or did not, they are accountable for it. And they will pay for it. There's no two ways about it. That brings us at peace and it prevents us getting angry about it. It prevents us getting upset about it. It's easy for me to say, it's not easy to do. It really takes a true deep understanding of what we are learning here. Accountabilities are not mutually dependent. Accountabilities are individual responsibilities and never go away. And we always need to remember that. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a child cannot repay his father unless he finds him as a slave and then buys him and sets him free. Meaning that all the father has done, it cannot be repaid by whatever the son does to him, unless this would be an impossible situation, that the father becomes a slave and the child goes and frees him from the slavery and sets him free, which is not going to be easy. Similarly, Sayyid ibn Abi Burda said, I heard my father say that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu saw a Yemeni man going around the house while carrying his mother on his back, saying, I'm your humble camel, I'm your humble camel, I'm your humble camel. Then he asked Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, do you think that I have repaid my mother? By putting her on my back and making her tawaf of the Kaaba and giving her all around, have I repaid what all she has done for me? He replied, not even for a single grain. You can never do enough to repay what your parents have done for you. Please remember that. Allah curses anyone who curses his parents. Another hadith. Allah curses anyone who curses his parents. Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu anhu said, a man came to the Prophet asking his permission to engage in jihad. The Prophet asked, are your parents alive? Yes, he replied. The Prophet he said, then engage in jihad for them. That is, devote yourself in serving them. Look at the importance of serving the parents, that it is even important than jihad. If the parents are in need, you don't go for jihad, period. These days we see, may Allah forgive us, people go for the work of da'wah and leave their families and parents. Allah will take care of them. We are out in the work of da'wah. Don't fool yourselves. Their responsibilities, their obligations must be fulfilled first. You cannot even go for Hajj. And Hajj is an obligatory thing. It's not the work of da'wah. You cannot go for Hajj if your parents are sick and in need and there's nobody to look after them. The Hajj is then not compulsory on you at that time. This is how important this is. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrated, the Prophet ﷺ said, let him be humiliated. Let him be humiliated. And the third time, let him be humiliated. It was said, Allah's Messenger, who is he? Who should be humiliated? He said, he who finds his parents in old age, either one or both of them, and does not earn paradise. A true reminder for us adults who have elderly parents. What are we missing here? To keep ourselves giving some free time and to keep our wives or our husbands happy and our children happy, we are abandoning our parents to the point where this is a real story I'm sharing with you. Somebody's father died in a senior citizen home. It was a number of years ago. His son was somewhere, I don't know if he was in town or somewhere, but the community called him. He said, we are very sorry to inform you that your father passed away this morning. He said, no problem, how much money should I send for his janazah? Just tell me how much money I should send. SubhanAllah. What good this dunya would do to him? Whatever he was busy with, what would this all of what he was busy with will do to him when he dies? Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said, making parents cry is part of disobedience. Please remember that. Especially little children or us adults who have elderly children. If we say some things and make our parent cry, it's part of disobedience and a major sin. And last but not least, Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, three supplications, three du'as are always accepted without any doubt. The supplication of someone who is oppressed, the supplication of someone who is on a journey, and the supplication of the parents for their children. When a mother or father makes dua for you, it is never rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if a mother or father curses you, that is also accepted. May Allah forgive us. May Allah forgive us. My grandmother passed away. This was many, many, many years ago. No, sorry. My grandmother passed away. She was in her 80s. And my uncle, who was at that time in his 60s, was crying. And I was with him. And I said, I was trying to console him. I said, my dear uncle, I know you're sad, but grandma lived a very right life. She was a very, very, very pious person. I'm sure that she's in the paradise, inshallah, and waiting for you. He looks at me. He said, that's not why I'm crying. Now I was surprised. I thought he was crying because he was sad, losing his mother. His mother died. He said, that's not why I'm crying. I said, then why? He said, today, a major door of du'as is closed for me. A major door of du'as is closed for me. I'm sitting here. I have been in North America for 50 years, over 50 years. I truly believe what has saved me here is my mom's du'as. I truly, with my heart, believe it. That what has saved me from living here for 50 years by myself and after I got married was only due to my mom's du'as. When I was leaving home, when I was 22 years of age, she said, son, never leave your faith. Always hold fast to your faith. And she made dua for me since then. And since I was a very small child. It is because of her duas that I am where I am. Kids who are suffering out there, kids who are having very hard time in their lives out there, it may be because their parents are not happy with them and that not making duas for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us wisdom and guidance and understand that what Allah and Allah's Prophet have taught us is true. And we should, may Allah help us to take this seriously. And if we have disobeyed and hurt our parents, to go, if they're alive, to go and sincerely cry and ask for their forgiveness before they're gone. And if they're gone, then please make du'as for them, make sadaqas for them, ask for their forgiveness, and be nice to their relatives. If you have uncles and aunts, be nice to them. Because this is a very costly thing in life hereafter. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه. الله أكبر كبيرا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم توفنا مسلمين والحقنا بالصالحين غير خزايا ولا مفتونين. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا اغفر لي ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. صلى الله تعالى على خلقه محمد وسلم. Yes, sir.